Welcome to A Revolution to Lead podcast. We bring you daily wisdom and inspiration from the revolution, filled with the greatest minds and talents of all time. When Jesus walked out of his tomb 2,000 plus years ago, he began a revolution against an old way of life. Jesus is not just offering another self-help strategy, but a brand new reality that is overthrowing the world as we know it. This podcast is all about how we tap into and live out this new reality in order to live a revolutionary life. Job is a phenomenal case study on God's justice, because the whole book is picking apart different worldviews that they had in thousands and thousands of years ago. However, these views are still the ones we're debating today. Because the first one is, well, good things should happen to good people and bad things should happen to bad people. But it doesn't. And the main argument of Job's friends is, you must have done something bad because a bad thing is happening to you. And Job, and we know, Job didn't do anything wrong. However, what we learn in the book is really, we're all fallen and all of us deserve death. All of us deserve tragedy. But by God's grace, he pulls us out of it. We might go through seasons, but in the end, God wins because there's the gift of heaven. And then some of you think that's a low argument, but think about if we really do live for eternity, a death right now is simply a stepping stone into the new reality fully that we get to experience a tiny bit of today. And another one is that, well, just God controls everything and God just doesn't like us. And again, no. God is gracious. God is good. But again, he will not go back on his word. And because we are representatives of his rule and he has given us the authority to rule the earth, we allowed sin and death in, and now we must deal with it. But we do have an escape. We do have a stronghold, and that is God. And we put our faith and our trust and our hope in God. Job, I love that Job demands to speak to God. Throughout the whole book, Job is demanding, God, let me speak to you. And he doesn't show up. And that feels like so many of us, that we're demanding answers. We're demanding, man, this person shouldn't have died. Why do children die? Why do good people die so young? Why do such tragic things happen to great people? God, let me have an answer for you. And it feels like there's silence. However, we learn at the end of the book, God is listening all along. And God speaks to Job's friend and says, your pride has blinded you. You were unfaithful to my representation. Because the entire book, Job's friends are like, you've done something wrong. You've done something wrong. You've done something wrong. And we're so righteous and you're not. And God's like, none of you are righteous. And then he turns to Job and said, well, I'm here. And I have some questions for you. Were you there when I laid the foundations of the earth? When I set the stars in the sky? When I made the ocean borders? And Job, of course, says no. And God continues to ask him questions of, Job, do you know how the world works? Would you like to run any of this for a day? And Job answers, no, God, I get it. And I'm sorry that I questioned you. Now, Job is not ridiculed for the feelings he felt. But God does remind him that there is so much going on that he does not see. And that's what we have to know. That the world is so intricate and there's so much more for us. And this is why the hope of heaven is so real. And that's why the restoration of the world is so real. That one day, the human representative who did not allow sin, evil, and death to enter his life until he became our sacrifice. He's going to come restore the world as our righteous king. Because as a human, he defeated death, hell, and sin. And he's going to eradicate it for us once for all. So when we're in hard times, we must give the trust over to God. In our lives, when things aren't going right, when things aren't happening the way we think they should happen, we should trust God. And many of you will say, oh, that's just brainwashing. No. It's saying, I'm going to control what I can control. And I'm going to trust God to control everything else. Because even if you don't believe in God, when bad things happen, you still can't control it. What are you going to do that's any better? Please give me an answer. Or there's another choice. We trust God. We be grateful for this breath. And we don't tear people down, but we build them up. We spend our entire life instilling hope and not being angry. So when people do go through tragic times, we can be a light in the darkness of their life. We can be the hope. We can be the joy that pulls them from depression, anxiety, and maybe the worst day of their life. So, in the next season of your life that's hard, because it will come, give over trying to understand, because you're never going to understand God. Give over trying to comprehend what's going on, because you won't. God is so much bigger and greater, and that should be a comfort that we can't understand it. Because I don't want a God that has the understanding of me. But God's viewpoint is so much greater. And it's something we'll never truly fully understand. If you're enjoying this podcast, please rate, subscribe, and share with a friend. Because the revolutionary life is not about self-enlightenment, but about changing the world around you. So again, hey, remember, my NFT's out. If you want to get exclusive content and join a community of revolutionary people, go buy my NFT on OpenSea. It'll be linked up in the show notes. And it is a community that in your darkest times will give you light. So go out today and be revolutionary.